Welcome to this information session on the topic of narrative, developed and presented by the Speech Pathology team at Peel Language Development School. My name is Kristen Aird, one of the members of the Speech Pathology team, and I will be sharing this information with you today. This video is designed for Peel Language Development School parents and carers. So by now you should have all received your child's individual language plan, which outlines their individual goals in each of the areas of oral language. This video is one of a series of videos that will be uploaded over the coming weeks to support the areas of oral language that are in your child's ILP. And today this video will focus on the language area of narrative, and we'll discuss some ideas of how you can support your child's narrative goals within the home environment. This is an example of the narrative page from the individual language plan. So if you turn to this page on your child's ILP, you'll be able to see their current goals in this language area. So the goals that are highlighted in yellow are the current active goals that they are working on. The active goals may have NG under them for new goal, meaning that this is a new goal that has been set. Active goals may also have a D for developing, meaning that the child still requires some assistance with this task. Or active goals may also have an E for emerging, meaning that significant assistance is required with these activities. If you see a goal that has a C and has been highlighted in grey, that means that your child has consolidated that goal and has moved on to new ones. So when we talk about narrative or oral text, we're referring to the telling or the retelling of a series of events. And this is a skill that we use every day, and it includes things like procedures and explanations, so telling or retelling how we do something, recounting something that you've experienced, or sharing news, and it also includes telling stories. Stories are a really important form of communication, like for example when we share a meaningful moment from our lives, or even the more ordinary everyday things like telling someone what we did on the weekend, or about a book that we read, or a movie that we saw. So it really is how we connect with one another. And so when we teach children how to tell stories, we're teaching them to become better communicators. So in terms of the narrative goals that your child may have set for them in their individual language plan, you will see some students will have sequencing goals. So there's a section at the top of the ILP page for the different sequencing goals that may be set. So starting simple and then progressing to longer and more complex sequences. So we often practice sequencing with procedures such as craft activities and cooking, as well as practicing putting pictures in order from a familiar story. It's also really important to teach our children how to organise a story in a way that they can then retell it and have it make sense to others. So common goals that assist with these skills: to start with, we explore the simple story structure elements. So who was in the story, where the story happened, when it happened and what happened. And then we move to more complex structures. So what happened at the beginning, the middle, and then the end. And for our older students, we expand this even further, helping them to clearly identify the problem in the story, what the characters planned to do to solve the problem, and what was the resolution and the ending. And as children's storytelling skills progress, their narratives will become richer as they learn to add details such as dialogue between characters and to use more descriptive language and passages in their narratives as well. So you may see goals related to story content, including characters' feelings and thoughts, and the use of those story-like features. On this slide, you can see our Peel Language Development School narrative cue cards. So we use these as prompts for our children while they listen to, retell, or even write stories for our older students. So these cue cards really help them learn to identify what the important parts of a story are, and then they assist them to organise and retell events and stories in the correct order. So you should have all received a selection of these cue cards earlier in the term. Depending on what year level your child is in will depend on what they received. So younger students would have got one or more of the who, where, when and what cue cards to assist them with their current narrative goals. And older students will have received the beginning, middle and end template that you can see there, which contains all of the cue cards in a structure that supports their narrative goals. So I'll talk a bit more about how we can use these at home on the next slide. Here we have some ideas of things that you can do at home to support your child's narrative skills. So sharing books with your child is a favourite, and remember, you don't have to read a book word for word. You can talk about the pictures and the parts that your child is interested in and follow their lead. This is particularly helpful for younger children to help keep them engaged. You could use your story cue cards to talk about who was in the story, where and when it happened and what happened in the story. And for older children, you can see if they could identify the problem in the story, the character's attempts to solve the problem and so on. News telling is another really valuable tool for practicing oral narrative skills. So I'll just flip to the next slide for a moment. So this slide shows our Peel Language Development School news telling cue cards, which we also use to support their their semantic skills. A copy of these was sent home with your child's ILP towards the end of term 1. So we use these for all students at school, so they should be familiar with them. You can practice news telling at home before your child's news day or just as an additional activity to support their narrative skills. So it's best to just pick a few cards to focus on. So you might choose 3 or 4, for example. What is it called? Where did you get it from? What parts does it have? What do you use it for? And the cue cards that you choose may vary depending on what item you're describing or what it is that you're talking about. Another great activity that you can do at home is cooking. So you can talk about the steps that you follow, and it can be really simple. It could even be just, making toast. So first we put the bread in the toaster, then we wait for it to cook. When it pops up, we carefully put it on a plate. Then we use a knife to spread some butter and some jam on the toast. And last of all, we get to eat it. So talk about the ingredients or the materials used, any utensils or appliances, and then help your child to link the steps together. So using some of those joining words like first, then, finally. This helps children to learn how to sequence events and to organise their thoughts in a logical manner. For older students, you can be encouraging them to retell stories or a TV show or movie that they've watched or family events that have happened. You can use the cue cards as prompts to help them remember what information to include. You can also encourage them to use their imaginations and make up their own stories. So you can use pictures from magazines or junk mail catalogues or websites. There's an example there on the slide, Once Upon a Picture, which has some really great images that will capture their interest and hopefully inspire them. And remember with our older students to use that beginning, middle and end template to help them. So here are just a few apps that are available from the App Store to download that may assist in targeting your child's narrative goals. These apps are super fun and they do work best if you're able to do them with your child. If you're sitting with them, then it just means that you're there to help them navigate the app and to provide support where required. Thanks so much for watching our narrative information video. We hope you found it useful. Please do make contact with your child's classroom teacher or a member of the speech pathology team at Peel Language Development School if you have any questions about the content of this video.